This is also pretty interesting. This is from Brad Stainbrook, tweeting out the 53-man roster to start the season, especially on the defensive line. So 2022, Garrett, Clowney, Bryant, Elliott, Wright, Winovich, Rochelle, Togiai, Winfrey, and Isaiah Thomas. 2023, Elliott Garris, Shelby Harris, Siaka Ika, Isaiah McGuire, Okunrankwo, Za'Darius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, Maurice Hurst, and Alex Wright. That's pretty stark when you look at the improvement and the upgrade that you have made to what was a weakness a season ago, being the defensive line. Who do you think what's the biggest addition? Who do you think the biggest offseason addition has been?
I take a look at Dalvin Tomlinson. I think he's the biggest one. I could have went with Za'Darius Smith, but the reason I picked Dalvin Tomlinson is because you look at what the defensive line was before. Look at what the weakness was for the Cleveland Browns. We go back to the Atlanta Falcons, and I've been talking about this all offseason. You go back to the Atlanta Falcons, and they ran inside zone or some variation of a zone run play at you 12 straight times with backup guys that are off the street. Can't happen. When you look at that type of ineptitude up front, you look at what they had to come back and do. They went and got a Shelby Harris. They went and got a Dalvin Tomlinson, played him the most, one of the biggest free agent haul they got. They take a look and you trade for Za'Darius Smith. And now you've gone from one of the worst defensive lines in football, which is by PFF, to one of the best defensive lines in football, according to PFF. You have, two defensive ends that are in the top 13. You got two defensive tackles inside the top 17 with the addition of Tomlinson and Shelby Harris. If you had to pick one, I picked Tomlinson because he's going to be the anchor point. He's going to be a guy that you're not going to be able to run the football on. And it's going to allow Myles Garrett and Za'Darius Smith to get loose on the outside. So for me, I take a look at everything that they've done. Tomlinson is going to be at the point of attack, and no longer are we going to tolerate, or hopefully you can stop, guys running up and down the field in the middle of your field, because if you can't stop the run, there's nothing else that you can stop, period. And that's just look to last year to see how that turned out when you couldn't stop the run. The Browns couldn't stop the run, the pass, special teams, none of that. But it starts with the run. It starts with stopping that in order to get to earn the right and earn the right to go out there and rush the passer on 3rd and long.
Yeah, I can't argue with Tomlinson. I wouldn't argue with Shelby Harris. I still, and I know a lot of people will disagree with this because it's not a player. I think Jim Schwartz is the biggest addition because this defense already has an identity that it didn't have in how many ever years Joe Woods is here. You're already seeing, them running over offensive linemen, pushing the line of scrimmage back. We had Mike Lombardi on the show last weekend, and he said, I know Jim Schwartz. He will stop the run.
And you look, you just take a look. You always know that there's a stamp on your position group when you start having guys that are coming in, replacing you 2s and 3s. The Browns look dominant with safeties. The Browns look dominant with getting turnovers, interception, pick sixes. The Browns look dominant in pushing offensive linemen around. And guess what? You didn't even see the ones in there. You weren't seeing Myles Garrett. That wasn't Myles Garrett doing that. Za'Darius Smith played sparingly. You weren't seeing Dalvin Tomlinson and Shelby Harris in there. You haven't even seen any of your linebackers. We talk about Anthony Walker and Taki. You haven't seen any of those guys. So when you got guys that are in the second unit and the third unit taking up that spirit, taking up that aggressiveness, you understand what type of time we're on now, because if they're doing it, what do you think Myles Garrett's going to do when he finally gets let out of the garage and getting ready to prowl on these streets? It's going to be a tough one, and I'm as excited about the Cleveland Browns defense this year than I have, and I've been watching these guys for 30-plus years. It's as good a defense talent-wise, but they have the talent to go with the mindset of the coach as well, which is going to be the key.